It's shortly after Christmas. The calendar shows December 27th, 1983. The most unlikely visitor arrives to see the Turkish prisoner Ali Ağca, who is serving a life sentence in an Italian prison in Ancona for the attempted assassination of Pope John Paul II. It's the Pope himself, 63-year-old Karol Wojtyła. He asks the man who had tried to take his life 2.5 years earlier if he speaks Italian. When Ağca responds affirmatively, the Pope sits down on a plastic chair in the corner of the room and speaks with him quietly for 21 minutes. What they discussed has never been revealed. However, it seems the Pope learned what he wanted to know. After the meeting, he stated, "Everyone says Ali Ağca is a professional assassin. That means it wasn't his initiative. Someone else planned it and gave the orders. Who that someone else was remains a mystery to this day." The future Pope Karol Wojtyła was born in 1920 in the Polish town of Wadowice. His father was an army officer and his mother a teacher. He spent his childhood much like many other boys. He excelled in school and often played as a goalkeeper in football matches. At the age of 8, he lost his mother, and at 12, his older brother Edmund, a doctor whom he deeply admired. During high school, he met his only romantic interest, a Jewish girl from the neighborhood. In 1938, he enrolled at the Krakow University, where he studied philology and foreign languages, eventually mastering 12 of them. He also underwent military training, but refused to participate in shooting exercises. After the German occupation began, he was forced to work first in a quarry and later in a chemical factory. In 1941, his father died, leaving 20-year-old Karol completely alone. Around this time, he began contemplating the priesthood and secretly enrolled in an illegal seminary. Simultaneously, he joined the anti-Nazi resistance, aiding those being persecuted and contributing to the rescue of several Jewish children. He narrowly escaped death twice, first when hit by a German car, and later during a Gestapo raid in the 1944 uprising. After the war, Karol Wojtyła's church career rose quickly. In 1946, he was ordained as a priest, and 12 years later, at the age of only 38, the Pope appointed him as a bishop, making him the youngest bishop in Polish history. After just 5 years, he became an archbishop, and 4 years later, he was elevated to the rank of cardinal. At the age of 50, Wojtyła became one of the most influential and respected cardinals in the Vatican. Then came the dramatic year of 1978. Pope Paul VI passed away, and another Italian, John Paul I, was elected in his place. However, just 1 month after his election, John Paul I unexpectedly died, an event surrounded by persistent speculation that he may have been poisoned. 2 Italian archbishops from Genoa and Florence vied for the papacy, but neither could secure the necessary majority. As a compromise and a way out of the deadlock, the name of the Polish Cardinal Wojtyła entered the fray. To everyone's surprise, in the 8th round of voting, Karol Wojtyła received 99 out of 111 votes and became the 264th Pope. More significantly, he was the first non-Italian Pope since 1523 and the first Slavic Pope in history. Under the papal name John Paul II, Karol Wojtyła would serve as Pope for the remaining 26 years of his life. He'd become one of the most respected and beloved leaders of the Catholic Church in the 20th century and perhaps in its entire history. One of his most undeniable achievements was his influence on the fall of communist regimes in Eastern Europe. His historic visit to Poland in 1979 became iconic. He addressed crowds of hundreds of thousands with ideas that were never spoken, even in whispers in the Soviet bloc, let alone at public gatherings.
Niech wstąpi duch Twój. Niech wstąpi duch Twój. i odnowi oblicze ziemi tej ziemi.
Of course, the more some adored him, the more others despised him. And so came the fateful day, May 13th, 1981. 2.5 years after his election, John Paul II is traveling through St. Peter's Square in an open limousine blessing the crowds. Suddenly it happens. A gunman emerges from the crowd with a semi-automatic pistol. Before anyone could stop him, he fires a series of shots. 4 bullets struck the Pope, 2 in the lower abdomen, 1 in his left hand and 1 in his shoulder. The shooter, Turkish hitman Ali Ağca, is subdued by bystanders, and the Pope is rushed to the hospital. He is given last rites, but after surgery, his condition began to improve rapidly. John Paul II credited his recovery to Our Lady of Fatima, who, according to Catholic tradition, had appeared to 3 shepherd children in Portugal on May 13th, the same date as the assassination attempt. It was believed that she had foretold an attack on the Pope, specifically the man in white. Ali Ağca later presented a series of conflicting accounts about who was behind the assassination attempt, from the KGB to Iran's Islamist regime and even conservative factions within the Vatican itself. What was true is known only to him, and perhaps after their extraordinary meeting in 1983, to the Pope as well. In any case, John Paul II forgave his would-be assassin, and as a result, Ağca was eventually released from prison. Today, at nearly 70 years old, he is a free man. Returning to John Paul II and his 26-year leadership of the Catholic Church, his tenure was remarkable in many ways. For instance, he traveled more than any other pope before him, visiting countries all over the world, including some of the most remote places. He preached to massive gatherings in churches, open spaces, and stadiums. His sermon in Manila, Philippines was attended by 4 million people. John Paul II was unafraid to criticize the powerful and stood up for the marginalized wherever he went. Another hallmark of his papacy was the sheer number of canonizations. Over his time as Pope, he canonized nearly 500 people and beatified over 1,300. More than all his predecessors combined. He believed that sainthood should not be reserved for prominent church figures, but also be accessible to ordinary people. John Paul II also made significant efforts to foster reconciliation with other religions and Christian denominations. While not all attempts were successful, for example, his long-desired visit to Russia never materialized due to resistance from the Orthodox Church. He managed to break down long-standing animosities in many instances. His opposition to war, oppression, and injustice was notable. He issued a remarkable series of apologies for the Catholic Church's past wrongs, including its involvement in the slave trade, historical discrimination against women, inaction during the Holocaust, and even, of special interest to Czechs, the burning of Jan Hus. Clearly, John Paul II brought fresh thinking to many aspects of the Catholic Church. However, in certain areas, he remained steadfastly conservative. This included his traditional view of the family, which he believed should always consist of a man, a woman, and children. He strongly opposed abortion and contraception, including condoms, a stance that drew significant criticism during the AIDS epidemic. In the last years of his life, John Paul II suffered from serious health issues, including advancing Parkinson's disease and arthritis. He passed away in Vatican City on April 2, 2005, at the age of 84. His final words, spoken in his native Polish, were those of an elderly man who had changed the Catholic Church and to some extent the world. "Let me go to the house of my Father."